Zikhona, before we talk about the water situation, let's quickly talk about the ZCC deciding that the Moriah Church gathering, which takes place over Easter, is no longer happening.
So they say they've postponed and they'll announce another date soon. But when we were walking around the communities yesterday, speaking to members of the church, they were quite adamant that they're waiting from word from their leaders as to whether they will gather on Easter or not. They said that listening to the country's president doesn't work for them. They have their own president, their own leader in their church, and therefore they will wait for a word from him as to whether they will gather on Easter or not. So a lot of people that we spoke to yesterday were adamant that we are going to Moriah if our leader says we should go. So this morning, I'm sure the sentiment will be different. But we need to clarify that it's the ZCC Star that has spoken and said they've cancelled the gathering on the Easter weekend. The ZCC Dove has not come out yet to speak as to when they'll gather. They also gather in Moriah, about 2 kilometers apart from the ZCC Star. So we'll wait to hear from them as to whether they will heed the president's call to gather, not together on Easter.
All right, Zikhona. Also, you spoke yesterday to some of the locals there. I think you even spoke to a traditional leader there who was calling for water tankers to be brought in areas that do not have running water on their taps. We know that Limpopo is notorious for this particular issue. What are government authorities saying there?
So the Minister of Human Settlements, Water and Sanitation, Lindiwe Sisulu, spoke last week to say that there will be water tankers taken to areas where water is not easily accessible for communities, but they haven't reached this part of the world yet. When we're driving through many of the rural communities yesterday, we saw many people using wheelbarrows to get water. There are also some areas where people are sharing water with animals, and they will continue visiting those communities today to speak to residents as to how do they feel, given that we are in a crisis, we are facing a crisis with the coronavirus. We only have one case of the virus in Limpopo of a 28-year-old doctor. We know that he did not interact with patients, he only interacted with his colleagues, but that's also dangerous in itself. We don't know how far his colleagues would have interacted with other patients who visited the local hospital. So there's a huge call from community leaders here as well as residents for water to be made more accessible, because a big part of fighting the coronavirus is to make sure that we wash our hands regularly, and that demands more use of water. So we will be speaking to residents today to find out how they are coping with the lack of access to water, and given that they are asked by the president to use more water.
Live from Polokwane, Limpopo. Thank you very much, Zikhona Chona, giving us an update there.